Thank you. The gentlewoman from Ohio, Ms. Beatty, who is also the chair for the Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Let me first start by the door that was opened by Ranking Member McHenry when he said this committee was about Democrats wanting headlines. Well, I do want headlines. I want the headlines to read that Beatty wants business diversity in banks. I want the headlines to read that Beatty finds all white male CEOs with C-suites and boards lacking diversity unacceptable. I want the headlines to read that Beatty demands change. I want the headlines to read that she is not anti-banks. So as I sit here today, let me say to you, by your own numbers, some 504,000 employees. I have 135 employees who work in financial institutions in my bank. So I really think that you are too big not to employ African Americans, minorities, and other forms of diversities and females in your pipeline and high positions in the bank. So for me, it's about changing the culture. And let me just tell you, you've answered the questions. I'm not so sure I understood the hand-playing game. While I appreciate my colleagues asking you the questions, so I'm going to do it a little differently because I am the chairwoman of D&I. I'm going to ask you to simply go down the line and say yes or no. So I want to know, would you put in writing that you will develop a diversity plan for me that includes pipeline and what you will ask your board and what will you do at the C-suites? Mr. Corbeck, yes or no?
We already have that plan in place.
So, no, I need it. So the question is, will you put it in writing to me as the chairwoman, yes or no?
Yes.
Absolutely, and we're devoted to getting it done right.
Yes, we have. Ours is publicly disclosed.
Now, I want it sent to me. Let's be real clear. I want it in writing addressed to me, yes or no?
Yes.
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 Okay, so now the question is, we look at the sum $5 to $7 trillion. So for me, business diversity. Who are you using with your assets, your international funds? So I want to know, yes or no, do you have an African American, a minority, or female company that manages your assets? Yes or no? It's a yes or no?
We're not in the asset management business.
Or any of your bank funds, your pension, your members' funds, your money?
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure the answer is yes.
Yes, we have minority-owned firms that manage money.
Yes, I think we do.
Yes, we do.
I believe yes.
Yes, we have minority-managed firms that manage money.
The next thing, my colleague asked you about the Rooney Rule. Dan Rooney started that in 2003-04 because he was the Diversity Committee chair, and African Americans were bringing all the monies in, and they didn't have any black coaches or black owners. So I knew by your facial, most of you didn't know what that was. So let me tell you something you will remember, the Beatty Rule. And I'm doing it with the federal banks. And it's House Bill 281. I suggest you read it and you have your staff and your lobbyists read it. Last question. I think I'm going to ask you, would you participate if I create, we do the same thing for government. We have OMWI, so I'm going to have BOMWI, Bank's Office of Minority Women and Inclusion. In your positions as CEO, will you hire a director of diversity that reports to you? Yes or no?
My director does.
It's a yes or no for my time, I'm sorry.
Yes, kind of.
Reports to our head of HR.
No, I want the title to be Director of the Office of Minority and Inclusion in Banks. So if you have somebody, you change the title or you hire somebody. Will you do it, yes or no?
We can look at changing the title if that's...
Oh, thank you.
You already have
Let's start, Mr. Solomon, let's go this way.
We can look at changing the title and the role and consider it.
Glad to do the same.
Will you authorize this person to then have a meeting with me so I can do a follow-up that we can be more than aspirational?
I'd be happy to.
Yes.
And let me just say, 3 of you were smart enough to at least meet with me before I was chairman and then came back. while none of you are where you should be, I do want to say thank you for being aspirational. Mr. Solomon, I want to thank you for coming in and at least having people in the pipeline. Mr. Corback, I want to thank you for coming in and telling the truth about what you had and hiring people. And Mr. Diamond, I want to thank you for also coming in and doing a program that included me. Thank you, and I yield back.